Hey, what's up everyone, Morey Croson here, and today we're going to be breaking down Boling 6.59 in comparison to 6.65, and we're going to start the video right now. This is the newest edition of the Performance Lab. Reach your individual goals. You don't want to just talk about straight line speed. We also want to talk about your ability to be quick. We break down your video. Let's make you into the quarterback I know you can become. All right, so as a lot of us know, Boling, he started off running a 6.59 in the prelims in the SEC championships, and then he ended up in the finals tying with a 6.65. And so we really want to go over what happened. The thing that really stood out to us was that in the prelims, he had a great start, right? He had a great, and when we really look at it, it ended up being really a great reaction. Right, so you can see from the very beginning, it was a little bit ahead, it seemed like, the guys that were next to him, but really right on the same time. In comparison to in the championships, he was a little bit delayed, right? You can see everybody basically reacted out in front of him. And, I would actually say this ends up being a great experience for Boling, especially when he watches it again, because what happened here, and if we look and see, some of the key critical numbers, right? So, he's down at 2.26. Boom, with that foot, 2.6. And then he's off by 4.3, right? So he's in that 0.17 range we're always talking about with that first step. Down at 0.5, and then back off at 0.63, 0.633, right? So that second step wants to be around, 0.13, 0.14 is what we're always talking about, and that's where he is. Right, so nothing amazing in terms of the start, right? Nothing really stood out there, and even on this one, 9.66, a little bit late, off at 0.86, right? 0.2. I might have been a little bit early there with that landing. The film is always not the best when it comes to this. I always like to be able to utilize my film better because you can get a little bit more accuracy there. And here we're at 0.1. So he's a little bit late with his steps there, right? We'd like to see that one closer to 0.14, okay, instead of, he's at about 0.17. So he's a little bit late, but I think the better thing here is he really didn't stay with his typical form here, right? So he realizes that he messed up with that and didn't really, wasn't that far behind with the first step, but he could tell that he got a bad reaction. And then on the second step, I think he kind of popped up a little bit, realizing that, and then it took him a little bit more time to be able to get off the ground. And then by the time he hit back on that third step, now he's back in a position where he's going to be able to get into his drive phase. But he kind of messed up with those first two steps, right? And you can see how that ended up making a big difference in, as he got into his drive phase, right? He ended up being a little bit behind. But I would say, he really wasn't in too bad of a place after his first two steps. Yeah, he's a little bit delayed, but I think that more of what the impact is that he, didn't stay consistent with, what it is that he does when it comes to, building to his top end speed. So the idea of the start, the idea of the drive phase is how can we optimize our ability to get into our top end speed as effectively as we possibly can, right? And so what happened here is because he got that delayed reaction, he didn't go into his drive phase as confidently, as he typically does. So now we're going to go into that 6.59, where you can see he really stayed with that drive phase and see how his spine stayed in a consistent angle all the way through. That really helped him as he went into that drive phase into his top end speed. Where here, he got into this spine angle and was a little bit out in front, and then, kind of lowered back down in order to get back into his drive phase, and then got into his top end speed later on into the race. Where here, he stayed consistent through that drive phase and then was able to transition to his top speed, a lot more effectively. So now he's way out in front of everybody and then just really utilize that top end speed to be able to help him out. Now, what makes him very, very, special and very intriguing from a, long-term development perspective is he has such a great position within his hips. You can see he has a lot of range of motion here, so he's able to land with his foot really, really straight while maintaining a lot of hip hinging ability. So his hips are still, back, his core is really flexed, so now he has a great opportunity to generate a lot of force behind him while maintaining a great position within the legs, right? So typically what happens is when you're landing here, you end up having to get your spine a little bit more upright to be able to land with your foot right underneath your hips right like that, because the hamstring range of motion is going to be limited, right? But for him, he can keep his spine pretty far forward while landing with his legs straight, which really allows him to generate a lot of force into the ground and transition to his top speed very, very smoothly. And this is what he could do no matter what. So even when he gets into his top speed here, he's able to catch these guys because he is able to go back into his fundamentals. But really, if he would have stayed with that at the beginning instead of, kind of panicking or kind of responding to, that bad step, right? So you could see this first two, and then this is where he really starts to have to go back down into his start, right, or into that initial kind of posture. So everybody else is kind of standing up and going through their regular mechanics, and he ends up being kind of a step behind in terms of his body position. Then he has to get back into, his normal drive phase, top end speed phase, and then he's able to end up, catching the guys at the end. But, that ends up being, I think, a great lesson for you guys. If, you start off and it's not a great start, you want to stay with, your same, start mechanics, your same drive phase mechanics. Don't, immediately react and respond in a way that's going to make it so now you lose your technique, right? Stay focused on the technique. Really, allow yourself to be able to go through the same processes no matter what happens. Everything that happens in the past, that's behind you. You can't make too big of an impact. I know that's, hard. I did this as well in my event. Is like, I didn't have a great start, and then I ended up impacted my ability to get into, my top speed. So it's a lot easier said than done, especially when you've been training and working, and he had such a great, prelim. So I understand, where it came from. But again, I think it's a great learning opportunity. So now when he gets this opportunity again, he'll be more prepared from a reaction point perspective, as well as, if things don't go right, stay calm and stay with his training, because he's still, what I'm sure he learned from this is like, he's got the elite speed. He was really far behind here in the 60. You don't have a lot of time to be able to make up space in the 60, but he was still able to do it. He still ended up being, tying for first place here with that great lean. But, we want to be able to understand, just because the start isn't always, or the reaction isn't always great, don't panic. And this is where, running the 40 could be a little bit better, because, you're not racing against somebody, so you don't lose that, body position as much. You could stay a little bit more consistent with your running form. But, in this race, you end up kind of panicking, especially because the guy next to him got a great start, right? So it was like the two total opposite situations here. You got one guy, who got a great start, other guy that got, a terrible start, and, they still ended up tying. So, I think it ends up being a great confidence booster for Matthew Boling going forward in terms of his overall development, especially because he ran 6.59, which is a great time, especially for his age. So, he needs to keep working on his start. He needs to make it so it's something that is a lot more of like a routine that he's consistently doing, to make it so then, when he gets to these events, he has a framework that he's going to be going through every single time. So, as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you like the information, go and click that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, you can leave those down below. And yeah, check out some of the stuff we're doing with our speed breakdowns and our speed program. I think that's always a huge benefit for you guys, especially because we're going to put a huge focus on technique. And I'd love to hear what you guys are kind of thoughts are, in terms of how we can make a program that would be great for you. I'm really thinking about adding a lot of, overall biomechanics to the program. So not only do you get, the technical teaching from like the breakdowns and exercises and plyometrics and working on the balance and working on the core, because I think, that ends up being the big thing is a few main problems happen to people that I think are trying to get faster. One, not as much emphasis on sprinting, right? So you got to be sprinting a good amount. Not enough emphasis on plyometrics and balance and ankle mobility, right? I see this all the time. People are trying to get faster, and they come in and they're like, they don't know how to control their ankles, don't know how to control their feet. They're not really working very much plyometrics, and that makes a big impact. And the last thing is core. The core has a huge impact on the posture, and also makes it so you have the necessary range of motion when you want to be able to run fast. And so, those three things are big components within the sprinting, but then it's also knowledge. And so I want to be able to make sure you have plenty of information that you could have access to help you in being able to improve your sprinting mechanics and make it so, it's not something that you always have to rely on me for. So, that ends up being the main three things that we have within the program, but I want to get an understanding from you guys what it is that, would be most beneficial for you, so then I can make a program that could be, something that you feel like can have a big impact on your overall performance. So, as long as those 3 things end up being big, and I know they are, but there could be things that I could be missing. I am adding a nutrition side of it as well. We're about to get done with a, ebook that we'll start making available, which will be, super beneficial for you guys as well. So yeah, as always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave those down below. Would love to hear from you. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.